Welcome to Convo Lounge Expression, Exposure, Experience.
Welcome to the Convo Lounge podcast with myself, Yandile Nuku, where we discuss all things unemployment in Botswana, not only discussing it with the aim to understand it, but also trying to find solutions towards unemployment. Now, in the midst of this, we also want to highlight or showcase high value talent that has been through Botswana's education system. They might still be adding value to Botswana's economy, but also talent that is also seizing academic opportunities outside of Botswana. We might say talent in the diaspora. So today we're joined by an interesting individual. He goes by the name of Tinashe. I don't want to butcher your surname, so you're going to tell us your full name, as well as try and understand what his academic journey has been like, what he did at the University of Botswana, and how does he find himself all the way in the UK today. We're going to talk all things the education system, the difference between these education systems, and what he's seeing in terms of opportunities. Tinashe, welcome to the Convo Lounge podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, Andile. Thank you for having me. And I'm delighted to be here. So my name is Tinashe Ngwenya. So that's it. As simple as that. Okay.
What does it mean?
Tinashe means the Lord is with us. Oh. Yeah, Emmanuel, if you were to translate it to yeah, it's a Christian name. So just a quick, brief overview of my academic journey. So I started schooling at Botswana Primary School in Extension 16. That's where I did my primary school. Then I went to Junior Secondary School, Block 3. Then from there, went to Lidumang Senior. And from Lidumang Senior, I went to UB, did a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And in UB, I went for student exchange in the US for 5 months at the University of Miami. Then from there, I went to the Central University of Technology in Free State in South Africa for another 5 months. Then when I got done with my bachelor's, worked a bit in KBL for about 5 to 8 months. Then I got a scholarship, the MasterCard scholarship in UCT, where I enrolled for a master's in mechanical engineering, focusing on computational biomechanics. So I was modeling cerebral aneurysm thrombosis, which is just looking at how clots form in bulging arterial vessels in human beings. Then from there, I went to Cambridge for 1 year, where I did a master's in future propulsion and power, just working on designing aircraft engines and anything that flies and produces power. Then at the moment, I'm in Oxford. I'm doing a PhD still in future propulsion and power, and I'm doing a project by Rolls-Royce.
So many complicated terms in terms of what you've studied and what you continue to pursue in your career. And I just want to go back to junior secondary. Was this always clear, or this is something that you identify along the way as you have a curious mindset? Were you always intentional about what it is that you're doing now?
I think from junior school, my interest in engineering was mostly nurtured by me taking classes in design and technology. So I took design and technology from junior secondary school. Then I took it until senior school. So
was that a module in school?
In school, yeah, design and technology, yeah. So it was one of my options. So it was one of the options that I did in junior secondary school. So we designed a couple of things. I think each year you get a topic, and there are different problems that students are given to solve in different ways. You come up with a portfolio, you do some drawings, some literature review, then at the end you do a design and make project. Yeah, so it's one of the things that helped to nurture my interest, and I kept on with it, and it led me here.
That was in junior secondary school?
Junior secondary school, yeah.
Interesting. So let's talk about, you also spoke about different exchange programs that you've been a part of. I don't know whether that was in UB.
That was in UB,
Botswana.
Yeah.
What was that? Was it a club, or was it part of your degree? You said you studied mechanical engineering. What was that?
So UB has partnerships with different institutions and different organizations that can provide students with student exchange experience. So one of the organizations that has a partnership with UB is ISEP. So ISEP would allow you to exchange between universities in Africa, in North America, Europe, and you just have to apply within UB. And as a Botswana, the University of Botswana would pick up the bill for you to go abroad, but you need to have a very good
GPA.
Performance, a very good GPA. So I had a good GPA and I was able to go for the first student exchange. And the second one, there was a partnership that formed between the University of Botswana and the Central University of Technology, mostly around manufacturing and transfer of skills. And I also applied for that, and there wasn't that much interest from some of the students. So for me, it was another good opportunity to go and experience something different.
Okay, so you went to Germany and then you went to?
No, I went to the US. I was in Oxford, Ohio. Then I went to the Central University of Technology in Free State.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me this, you're a student at University of Botswana, and here you go on exchange program to the US, but also to South Africa and Bloemfontein. How does this mold or shape your academic experience when you get back to Botswana to complete your degree? What are some of the key experiences or insights that you've gotten from these experiences?
I think one of the biggest eye-opening experiences was when I went to the US. So before I left Botswana, I think my ambitions were a bit limited. So I wasn't dreaming big enough. Then when I went to the US, I was fortunate to meet some people who had a lot of vested interest in my personal growth. Then we had a couple of conversations and we talked about the different possibilities and different pathways that I can follow as a mechanical engineering student. So when I came back to Botswana, I felt like I was settling for less and I should look for all of these things that they just implanted in my head and kept me dreamy all the time. So I was always looking for a way out and to just branch from just the general mechanical engineering and try other subspecializations.
And what are those pathways? Like, what are you getting from these, what I call it, mentors? Coaches? Yeah.
One of the, so mechanical engineering is very versatile. So we cover a lot of things from different engineering disciplines. So you could go one into maybe banking and finance. You could go into research and development, and you could go into consultancy. And there are many other subspecialties that in the University of Botswana you're not exposed to, because in the University of Botswana there are sort of like 4 main subspecialties and like not quite intriguing and interesting, I think, in the global market for other people. So I just wanted something outside of whatever the university was offering me. But also the University of Botswana experience was pivotal in my personal growth. And yeah.
Okay. So what are you choosing? I want us to talk about it from a problem-solving point of view, right?
Yeah.
The different, I think, categories or examples you've given, whether it's banking, consulting, or research, academia, it's very role-based. Let's talk about it from a problem-solving point of view and why you continue to specialize in the areas that you're specializing in. What are some of the problems that you're curious about and providing solutions towards?
So one of the biggest problems that mankind is facing at the moment is the issue of global warming. And one of the largest polluters in the world is the aviation industry. And also households, and because a lot of power that is generated, actually, I think about 30% of the power that is generated in Europe and the US is spent just on air conditioning. So that is what I'm currently working on for my DPhil, for my PhD. So there's a net zero by 2050. So the European Union is aiming to decarbonize the whole aviation industry. So in my program, we are working to come up with different solutions to solve these problems. And other people are working on changing the way vehicles work, the aircrafts work, and also the different systems that are used to power them. And other people are working on different fuels and different ways of burning the fuels and trying to substitute from your fossil fuels, like your normal kerosene, to maybe burning hydrogen, because hydrogen, when you burn hydrogen, you get water at the end and you don't get any carbon dioxide. So those are different problems that we're working on, or just issues of efficiency. If you improve efficiency, you burn less fuel and less carbon dioxide goes into the air. Yeah, and also just energy storage and how you store energy. Because with solar, if you're going to be using solar or some of the solar, wind, and some of the renewables, you don't have the same amount of energy throughout the day. So you have solar during a limited number of hours, and during that time you have a lot of energy, but you can't store it. So that's another problem that people are working on.
So, I mean, this is obviously an area that you're exploring a little bit more deeply through your PhD. Curious, as talent in the UK, I mean, you're studying at Oxford University. Is there room for you to apply those skills in Botswana? Or this is something that you're probably going to have to play a role globally and not from Botswana?
I mean, the goal for me, I see things from a global perspective nowadays. So I don't want to limit myself and confine myself to the problems that people are having in Botswana. But also a lot of the skills that I'm getting from Oxford and from different places, they're transferable. So at the moment, I'm working on aircraft engines. And the same skills that I'm using to solve problems on aircraft engines, we could possibly use them to solve problems in our Morupule power plant, or maybe to come up with different energy storage systems, and also just to find more efficient heating systems. And so the skills are still applicable, but the specific specialization that I'm on, it's a bit niche, and you don't have enough infrastructure and I think maybe academics and other people that I would work with. So the ecosystem in Botswana is not yet there.
Still, okay.
Yeah.
Still coming up, still emerging.
Yeah.
Okay. So curious, what are the main differences that you're seeing in your learning experience? I mean, you've had an experience in South Africa. I don't know how long you were in Cape Town for. You've had an experience in Bloemfontein. You've had an experience in Botswana, Gaborone, and you're also currently having an experience in the UK. With this exposure to different education systems, what are the key differences that you're picking in the education systems in these respective countries?
I think one of the biggest differences is an issue of access across many things. So it would be an access to industrial leaders, access to different resources, and also the amount of funding that is given to research. And so there are other nations that are investing our whole GDP just on trying to solve some problems. So that is the main difference. And also in the UK, most of the research that we are doing is solving problems specific to, we are working with industrial partners. So there are specific industrial problems that we're trying to solve. And in UB, sometimes we mostly do maybe engineering for the sake of engineering, just advancing our fundamental understanding of the different physical problems. But some of it doesn't go or ultimately lead to the generation of new products on the market. And Oxford has a very good ecosystem. So if at all they feel like your research has potential to be either copyrighted or getting intellectual property from it, they spin out a lot of companies every year. And they help their students to start up these companies and provide like a very good ecosystem and funding for that. And they get something from it, and also the students are benefiting, which is something UB is trying to do, but we are not yet quite there. Yeah.
I'm going to go for a quick break, but before that, it sounds very simple when you're now saying it, but your journey from UB to UCT, now you've won some scholarships to Oxford. Can you share a little bit about that and how that journey came about for you?
So for me, the journey, I think it began after I came back from the US. So at first, my goal was to go back to the US. So I applied for a couple of scholarships in the US. Then I applied to a couple of institutions. Then I was admitted to the University of Rochester, New York before COVID hit, and I couldn't go to the University of Rochester. Then I also got a lot of rejections, and through those rejections and some of the feedback that I got from the people that were reviewing my applications, it helped me to improve the way I structured my applications. And I was able to get 2 scholarships, one at the University of Cape Town to do a master's through the MasterCard Foundation, then the second one through the Rhodes Scholarship to do either a master's, 2 masters actually. With the Rhodes Scholarship, you have to do like 2 years in the program, or you could do a PhD. So, and I was fortunate enough to win both of them in the same year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Going for a quick break. If you're still tuning in, this is the Convalanche podcast, where we talk all things unemployment and finding solutions towards unemployment, but also showcasing high value talent that could contribute solutions to this story. Convalanche, expression, exposure, experience. Welcome back to the Convalanche podcast, where we're talking all things high value talent that is, I think, somewhat a good model or a case study towards going through the academic institutions, but also being relevant to industry while still in the academic space. So we're having a conversation with Tinashe and really highlighting his journey from Botswana's education system to some of the opportunities that he's managed to get, whether it's the MasterCard Foundation Scholarship for him to do a master's in UCT, to the Rose Scholarship, where he finds himself currently in Oxford studying his PhD. It's quite a complicated degree that you're doing. So feel free to re-mention it again in terms of what exactly it is that you're doing for your PhD in Oxford. But before you went for the break, you spoke about some of the differences between the education systems that you've been a part of. And I think a big part for me has been the access to industrial players and also access to funding, and the idea that research in industry is, industry is not only investing in research, or economies are not only investing in research, but industry is literally working with you on that research and in solutions. And to a certain extent, one would say, at Convalanche, our theory of change is that if we could get it right from a research point of view, we could see less unemployment in the country, or more talent becoming relevant to industry. Curious to know, with your experiences, your thoughts on, you've seen the gaps between Botswana and the other countries, whether it's South Africa and the UK. What do you think is the way forward in terms of solutions, and how do we close that gap?
There are a couple of things that we can do in terms of solutions. So there are certain solutions that would come from either maybe business minds, engineers, and scientists. Those would be like technical solutions. Mm-hmm. And also there are other solutions that would come from legislation and bills from Parliament.
Okay.
And also I think Parliament can facilitate a lot of changes that engineers and business people want to do. So starting with engineering, I think we need more collaboration between academics and the industry in Botswana, because academics and industry are working in isolation. Mm-hmm. And sometimes academics would be solving the wrong problems or not addressing the needs of our industry, or advancing the ecosystem for the different fields within the nation. So if you can get that collaboration, then also if you could have more money, funding for different research projects, because Africa, or Botswana, to be specific, we've been left behind on a couple of developments. Many nations are now transitioning to the fifth industrial revolution, fourth industrial revolution, and they're incorporating AI, they're incorporating big data and many things into the way they do things, but we are not yet quite there. And even if you try to get there, we can compete with them if you don't pour in a significant amount of money into research. Then also just restructuring our education system and training people for things that are relevant to our current market. I think these are some of the things that would help. Then also for Parliament to create conditions for business people, for engineers to be able to implement and do some of these things that they want to do without that much difficulty.
As a young person, this is generally, do you feel like there's hope? Do you feel like some of these changes that you see need to happen could end up happening, or will happen? What do you feel like as a young person, a young Botswana?
I feel that there's hope. There are a lot of educated, ambitious, and very energetic Botswana. Some of them, they're just waiting to get an opportunity to come back home and to be able to make these changes. So I think if you can create an environment that would make it easier for them to be able to come up with these drastic changes. And for those that have been in the industry for the longest time to not resist changes and hold on to archaic practices that no longer serve the needs of the current.
Okay. Now, look, you've gone through the same education system that another young person has gone through in Botswana, but you find yourself in two different places and positions. What advice would you give any young person who's listening to you in terms of making themselves relevant to industry, or making themselves employable, or making themselves relevant enough to attract global opportunities?
I think the first advice would be for them not to be one-dimensional, because one of the biggest problems that we have is that we have academics that know only academics or just focus on academics. So they need to do some extracurricular activities. They need to move into leadership. They need to be active on different issues. Could it be climate change or whatever issues that are relevant within their discipline? And that would give them a better view of the world, and it would put them in a good position to be able to make judgments and move into spaces following like current and relevant trends. So that would be the first thing. Then the second thing would for them to spend as much time as they can learning the things that they need to do, because your value within the market is proportional to how much you know or how much you've mastered the craft. And if you really spend time learning and mastering the things that you're doing, once you're given an opportunity, you won't squander that opportunity. So many people squander opportunities when they get them because they're not ready for those opportunities. And also networking is very important. So your net worth and your network, they correlate. And many people try to focus only on getting academic qualifications, but not interacting with the people that would open doors for them or would be open for collaboration and also share different opportunities in different spaces and spheres. So that would be another thing for them to do. And just don't cheat the system. Go through the process and you'll reap the rewards.
Are you able to give like practical examples of how you're personally applying that in the UK?
In the UK. So for me, so currently I'm working part-time for Q Dot, right? So when I was in the University of Botswana, some of the skills that I'm applying in my current job are some of the skills that I learned in the University of Botswana. So I did some computational modeling for my capstone project in the University of Botswana. Then when I went to the Central University of Technology in Free State, I learned CAD modeling and just engineering design, and I got certification for that. Then when I went to Cambridge, I learned a lot of things on heat transfer and aerodynamics. And I tried my best to really master some of these things. So when an opportunity came out for a junior engineer in Q Dot, I applied for that, and the skills that I learned were relevant. And even when I went for an interview, I was able to demonstrate that my skills are relevant and I'm able to contribute to the company, even though there are certain things that I had to learn along the way. And as soon as I got hired, the next day I was given a task to do and to apply those skills. And I was able to demonstrate that indeed the things that I said I could do within my interview, I'm able to do and apply those things. And we are pushing, and the company is making some good progress. Yeah.
I'm curious to know about your mental health journey. Here you are. It seems as though you've been doing, your master's and your PhD simultaneously. You should actually unpack that story. I think it didn't come out quite clear what was happening there. And then today you're also multitasking. It's your PhD program, but you're also working as well. Your mental health journey, how's that been? Is that been okay? Or how do you deal with your mental health when it comes to academics?
So I think I've been fortunate to meet people that are really invested in my success, and are also understanding and have been mentoring me and guiding me toward in the right direction. So just to give you like a brief overview of what I've been multitasking with. So I did 2 masters at the same time. I was doing a master's in Cambridge. Then I was also trying to complete my master's at the University of Cape Town, and it's taxing physically, But I think the thing that I was able to appreciate is how different engineering fields are interrelated and how principles from one field could be applied easily in another field. So when I went to Cambridge, I was struggling with a couple of problems on what I was working on in the University of Cape Town. Then I learned new skills in Cambridge that allowed me to solve that problem. So, which was really good for me. And in terms of mental health, I try to keep in touch with friends. I go out once in a while, and then, try to have fun and not just be all work and no play.
Okay, interesting. So it's not everyone who makes a decision to go to the highest level of academia. If somebody is listening to you today, what would you say is the value of going to the highest level of academia? Masters or even degree level. What do you think is the value looking at your own personal journey?
I think for me, going for a PhD, it gives me versatility, and also I'm able to understand certain problems at a fundamental level, because there are certain progresses that we can make in fields unless you have a fundamental understanding of a system to be able to make drastic and groundbreaking changes to the way maybe a system works, or to the way we understand the inner workings of different mechanisms. So that is one for me. Then, as a PhD student, it has taught me, I think the most important skill is to learn how to learn. So you need to be able to learn. And when you're confronted with problems, move back, then invest some time learning a new skill to be able to solve that problem, then move to the next stumbling block, go back and learn new skills. And no one teaches you anything at a PhD level. They just guide you and they just give you feedback on how you're progressing. So I think that's the value of a PhD, to learn how to learn. So I can apply my skills on different fields and just not on aerospace, because I'm working on a slightly different problem for my PhD to the one that I'm working on for QDOT. Okay. But I'm able to translate those skills to solve that problem. And also what I was working on in Cape Town is on the intersection of engineering and medicine. And I'm able to apply engineering principles to solve medical problems. And I feel that's the value of research, just teaching you how to learn and how to adapt.
Okay. So you seem to be moving at a very fast pace, research after research, no breaks. Have you had any breakthroughs in your academic journey, in the sense that, like, you're exploring the intersection between medicine and engineering? Are you at a point where outputs and outcomes of your research, where you say, oh, I researched on this, I studied this, it's being applied, and you move to the next? Or you're just like, oops, I'm researching and I'm contributing to the literature review. Somebody else will continue with this another time, and you move on to your next. What's your journey like?
So currently I have 2 papers that are undergoing review. Okay. One is at the Journal of Biomechanics, then the other one is at the Journal of Translational Medicine. So we're able to build a full model of how a clot forms inside the arteries of a human being under different conditions. So there are different patients. There are patients that clot very fast, those that clot a bit slow, and those that have just a normal clotting profile, or So we looked at those, and I was able to describe some of the physics and the biochemistry that leads to the differences in changes. And I think what would be applicable is we built what we call a reduced order model. So it's a simpler model that doctors can use in a clinical setup to be able to diagnose or to tell whether this patient is going to form a full clot, or this patient is not going to be able to form a full clot. Mm-hmm. So we use some machine learning principles based on the data that I was able to generate. And so that model it's a very simple but it has a lot of utility, and we're able to verify the results of our numerical modeling based on some experiments that my supervisor did. So I believe that's a very good contribution, and a lot can come from that. But at the moment, I don't think I have enough time to to run after it. But I think the general outputs would be a very good contribution if at all they accept that and they feel like this is groundbreaking.
Okay. I was actually going to ask you that. I know academia has its own challenges, which is that, you'll do groundbreaking research and then it just stays as a journal and it doesn't move to somebody, championing it and actually taking it to application.
In terms of application, I think we actually at the cusp of it. We just need to extend the model. So the model we built is in 2 dimensions. So we need to extend the model to 3 dimensions and get more computational power because it's a very heavy model to calculate. So we're using the University of Cape Town high-performance computing platform. And it took a very long time to be able to do that. So if we could go around that and someone else, I think maybe another PhD student or master's student would be able to, push the model to the next level.
Oh, so, you're doing so many things. You've got such a versatile academic portfolio. One would be curious, what's your passion project? Like, what's the one thing that you want to identify Tinashe with?
So my passion project would be to see Africa participate in space. So that would be like what I would want maybe my legacy to be about, to be able to start our own space agencies in Africa and to be able to launch our own satellites and to start thinking of mankind as a multi-planetary species.
I think that's enough for us to close off the podcast. I don't know if you have any word of advice. There are young people that are listening to you, even elders. Doesn't just have to be young people. Anything you want to say to anybody listening to you?
I think you can't miss what you don't know. So young people need to expose themselves to different cultures, to different environments, to visit different countries, visit different companies, and learn and just expand their view of the world, and not just have their view of the world to be limited on their current predicaments or just Botswana. So that would stretch them and help them to, I think, dream even bigger.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us on the Convolange podcast.
Thank you for.
Awesome. And that was it on the Convolange podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found this, it was a human interest episode, really. I hope you found this case study insightful and that you picked a thing or two. Join us again the following week as we continue to talk about this issue of unemployment, trying to understand it, but also trying to provide solutions towards it. Convolange, expression, exposure, experience.